My mom's, she's in the streets. Look at myself. My father ain't got a father, so I'm with my grandmother right now. She can't teach me everything, you feel me? She can't teach me everything. Like, she can do only but so much. And I'm in the streets and I'm seeing what I'm seeing every day, you feel me? And you get accustomed to that, and you want shit, and you want stuff, you know what I mean? Stuff that your grandmother can't give you, you know, for me, like, and I just feel like when I'm on my own, I fell in love with the hustle. Learn how to hustle, got it, what, $500, what, 4 or 5 hours? It was over after that. I went there, it's over.
But was it really over from the start? This is just a glimpse into the reality that many of America's kids face every day. A reality that is often ignored and suppressed by mainstream media, but affects the lives of millions of kids growing up in cities all over the country. It's the reality that their lives are worth very little and can be expensed at the right price. Bold realization, I know, but the truth doesn't always come with the warning, and neither do police. I'm standing outside the home of Marley Graham, a Bronx teenager who was shot and killed in front of his grandmother last year after NYPD officers wrongfully kicked down the door to his house. The case has since been dismissed due to a technicality, leaving the Marley Graham family with issues unresolved. There's people everywhere growing more and more on edge due to cases like Marley's and Trayvon Martin. Now is the time to take a really critical look at the systemic issues that lead to the undervaluing of young lives. As someone who truly appreciates the value of a quality education, I found it important to take a deeper dive into the failing public school systems of our inner cities. And what's becoming commonly known as the school-to-prison pipeline, poor children are seemingly being funneled directly from the PS to the penitentiary in record numbers. If you take a look at recent reports, you'll see that disciplinary practices like suspensions and zero-tolerance policies have a lot to do with this issue. This past May, the New York Times published an editorial showing that public school students are being suspended at rates 40% higher than that of 6 years ago. The report also showed that there were close to 900 arrests and 1,600 court summonses that were given out for school-related misconduct. These tickets often result in warrants, as many of these kids never even make it to the court appearances, thus falling right into the trap. To give further insight on this, I decided to go on Skype with James Bell, founder of the Burns Institute in San Francisco, an organization that works on finding alternative solutions to youth incarceration.
There's a high correlation between young people that are kicked out of school or expelled and involvement with the youth justice system. And what these teachers don't realize is that when they kick that young person out of the class, their position is we don't suspend or expel them. It's the administration, the principal and the vice principal that suspend and expel them. And as a result, if those young people are suspended or expelled, that classroom teacher usually has no idea what happens to that young person when they call the school resource officer or the school police. They don't know whether that act constitutes a felony, a misdemeanor, if they're in a strike, a 1, 2, or 3 strike state. Most of those teachers have no idea about the consequences of sending that child out of the classroom for misbehavior. If they knew that their action was the beginning of this chain of events that landed a young person into the youth justice system, I think that many of them would actually reconsider and try to do something different.
The increase between young incarceration, particularly coming out of the school system, and then into the public sphere with dealings with the NYPD, that is a direct kind of correlation between our school system trying to mirror, or at least our public school system trying to mirror our prison system.
Another person I decided to reach out to was Calvin Smiley, both a professor and board member on New Jersey's Association on Corrections. I figured he'd be the perfect person to lend insight on how we could better deal with at-risk youth.
A lot of times we see students who might need more help in certain areas, might need further development of certain skills. But our answer to these students is one of two things. Either get them out of my classroom as quickly as possible because I don't want to deal with them, right? So if they're a nuisance, just promote them to the next grade and let that teacher deal with them, or kick them out. Now, when you kick a student out and suspend them and now they're not in school, they have free time to become more engrossed in that street culture, that gang culture. Not saying that every student who's ever suspended is going to go to that, but we're giving them more options to.
Calvin touches on a very key point. When a child gets kicked out of school, he becomes far more susceptible to the ills of the street, with very, very little resources to pull himself out of it. At the beginning of this piece, we're introduced to my friend Anthony. Growing up, I always knew he was a smart kid, but for a number of reasons, he did not have the most positive school experience.
My last grade I competed in the public school was 7th grade. That's when I first started getting in trouble, like literally, like with the law, like being in public schools, like getting kicked out every week, getting suspended. My first age I got locked up, I believe it was 13. And it started, I met the kids at public school. At public school, these are my childhood friends. And it's crazy, you know, we just started, we was bored, looking for trouble. And I guess that was fun for us.
They are seen as a climate where dangerous people are lurking and are there in substantial numbers and have to be controlled. The climate in which you're supposed to be going is not one that's conducive to really learning. If you learn in spite of the climate, because the climate is so much about custody, control, and security, rather than about learning, opening minds, and discourse.
Public school and prison, I feel like it's almost the same. People get shot in school. And people getting shot nowadays school almost every other day. Police is at the school like they in the streets.
There is a way that they're almost cultivating these students to get ready to spend time at Rikers Island, to spend time upstate, so that, you know, they're really not fearful. So we need to rethink the way that we're treating our students.
Recently, thousands of people gathered in downtown Chicago to protest an organization by the name of ALEC, a tax-exempt lobbyist group that introduces hundreds of bills every year in the education sector.
There are policies in place that we've never read, we've never had an opportunity to vote on, etc., that impact our lives on the daily.
ALEC's corporate members draft bills that favor their bottom line. Bills that endorse things like school privatization and for-profit prisons. ALEC's legislative members then introduce these bills into Congress on their behalf in return for campaign dollars. A win-win for everyone, except for those who are losing. ALEC's education bills typically hit on the following areas. Given the fact that private prison companies have direct representation on these committees, it should come as no surprise that these policies feed right into the school-to-prison pipeline.
Prisons are using prisoners as cheap labor for all these other corporations. It's mind-boggling. America wants to use the prison industrial complex to keep our society afloat. And it's sad because way too many of these people are black and brown.
As we continue to see these bias laws getting passed, public schools getting shut down, privately owned prisons getting constructed, the time is now for us to heighten our awareness. The time is now for us to become active agents of change. The time is now to save our children.
Young people, educate yourself. You want to change? Do it. Don't wait for somebody else to do it for you. Get the degree. They can't take it from you. It'll always have your name on it. They can't say so-and-so did the work. Because if I don't do it, you don't do it, it's not going to happen. And sadly for Romali, he can't go out there and make the change himself. We have to do it on his behalf, on everybody's behalf.